Let's talk about The Last of Us. The game was one of my favorites from the previous console generation, so much that I went ahead and bought it again for the PlayStation 4. But even though I really enjoyed it, it was still kind of a love-hate relationship. The quiet moments did drag on at times. The controls were, and well, still are a tad awkward for me, especially when things got a little crazy. But really, it's just those damn ladder and plank puzzles just got to me too much. Ultimately, the one thing that nagged me was Joel himself. Or rather, what I didn't get to see of Joel. Regardless if had it been 20 years later or not, his daughter died in his arms. That shit stays with you forever, man. It's the kind of thing that won't let you sleep at night. We never get to see him try and think about what I like to call the what-if scenario. It's when the main character of a story starts to second-guess themselves, usually after a tragic event occurs. In most cases, it's due to the loss of a friend or a loved one. In real life, we tend to second-guess ourselves and play out situations in our head on whether or not something could have gone differently. Think of any car accident you managed to avoid. Chances are, you immediately asked yourself, man, what if that other car hit me? Anyone here watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer? You should, because this is actually a good example to what I'm talking about here. There's an entire episode dedicated to Buffy coming home to find her mother dead. Not by a demon or a vampire, but of a brain aneurysm. There's also no music at all during the episode, an effective tool to highlight how unbalanced Buffy is. The entire episode digs really deep into her psychological state and how she's trying to deal with all of this. And at times, she starts to second-guess herself. What if I had known about this? What if I had gotten home sooner? What if? What if is incredibly difficult to portray because of how psychologically embedded it is. For it to work in a game, the developer would have to start using things like hallucinations to be able to properly set the scene for it. Something like the Scarecrow hallucinations of Arkham Asylum could work well, toying with the main character's emotions. However, you have to set precedent in the story for it to work. In Joel's case, his what-if moment was during those 20 years that we don't get to see. We don't get to see the second-guessing and rethinking of those events that led to the death of his daughter, breaking him down over time into a bitter, old man. It's why Joel's story is a tragedy and not redemption. He sees his daughter in Ellie, so he does everything he can to save her at the cost of damning all humanity, just so he doesn't have to ask the question again. What if I could have saved her? In 2009, I played a game that explored this question in an interesting way. Before he became famous for Super Hexagon and VVVVVV, or however the hell you pronounce it, Terry Cavanaugh made Flash games for free on the internet. One game in particular was called Don't Look Back. It's a fun little platformer, and it can be quite challenging at times. If you're any decent at it, you can probably finish it in about 10-15 minutes tops. A link to the game is in the video description down below, and I would highly recommend giving it a try. Be warned though, from here on out, there will be spoilers. The character we control is a normal, average-looking guy, standing over a grave in the rain. There's no explanation as to why we're here, who he is, or who that grave belongs to. All we know as the player is we need to go right, to get away from the grave, to not look back. We learn to move, we learn to jump, and we learn to shoot. Since we are just a regular Joe, everything kills us in one hit. Then we start to notice a trend. We're going down. We enter a cave while fighting through the creepy crawlies that inhabit it. Once we reach the end of the cave, for no reason, we cast ourselves into the dark abyss below. Instead of the cave, we now see lakes of fire. What is possibly Cerberus as a mini-boss. Instead of just snakes, spiders, and bats, demons are introduced, culminating into a boss fight against maybe Satan himself? All the while, you're probably asking yourself, why am I here? After defeating Satan, we finally get our answer. At the end of the journey, we see her. It's here that everything starts to make sense. Oh, I get it, you say. This spirit is the same person buried at the grave, and you came down here to see her. However, she then follows you back. But there is a catch. If you turn around, she evaporates, resulting in a loss. So whatever you do, don't look back. The first time I played this, I was actually pleasantly surprised that it took this long to introduce me to the main gimmick of the game. But what I didn't realize before was that I fell into the trap. What if I can bring her back? What if I can save her? The puzzles, although not difficult, are tricky at first. Your gut reaction is to turn around to climb the rope here, but you have to force yourself to keep moving left. Every puzzle at this point shares this gimmick, trying to bait you into messing up, forcing yourself to turn around. It preys on your gut reaction to avoid a hazard by going back the other way, but you eventually get through them all. Finally, you get out of the cave, climb back up, and start the walk back to the gravestone. After all that hardship, after fighting through hell, you get her back, you finally save her, and you... But she's not coming back. You can't bring her back. She's gone, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Remember the good times for what they were, but move on with your life. And whatever you do, don't look back. If you do, you might start asking yourself the question, what if? I'll see you next time.